Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alyssa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
You know, Alyssa, I was up in Oregon a couple of weeks ago and hanging out with my sister-in-law, Bree. And she was drinking either a cocktail or coffee, I can't remember, spilled it all down her shirt. And she goes, "Hi, Grandma." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Apparently, when her grandmother was alive, she was a nurse and would drink coffee all day long, from morning till night. It didn't matter if it was hot, cold, sitting on the counter for 4 hours, she'd drink it. But her grandma was also notorious for every time she drank that coffee, she'd spill it on her shirt. And this is like she was known for this, I guess. And so now anytime Bree is drinking and spills something down her shirt, "Hi, Grandma." And it's just Grandma's way of showing Bree that she is still there and she is still watching over her.
That is so sweet. I love that. I'm going to start that too. I wonder if there's anything. Sometimes I just drool out of the left side of my mouth. Maybe that could be my thing. Whenever you just start randomly drooling. Hey, Alyssa.
Dribbling.
Hey, Grandma.
Alyssa. Hey.
I noticed I was doing that today. I was like, why? Like, I don't know.
You just go into deep thought. I just feel like a deep thought thing where you're just drooling
a little bit. Yeah. Did you see this thing in the news lately that people who drink 6 or more cups of coffee a day are more likely to have dementia? Did you see that? Yeah. I've also heard things about a cat that drank a cup of coffee every day and lived to be like 28. So, potato.
I know. Well, maybe there's just that fine line, like 6 cups, too much. 5 cups, A-okay.
Yeah, and when I said cat, I meant feline, not like a hip way to say person. Not like this cat over here who's all shoo boop beep boop boop hibbity hibbity hibbity
bop bop diddly doo. Coffee
once
a day.
Literally a cat. Some guy drank a bunch of coffee and also gave his cat a bunch of coffee, and they both lived extremely long lives. So this is a shocking revelation and a real hit to my theory of coffee. The more the better. That's
yes.
All day, every day. And
get a cat.
And feed it to your cat just for experimental reasons. It's supposedly very healthy.
My cat's kind of neurotic. I don't want to give it more coffee.
More neurotic cat. The cat's just shaking.
I don't need more meowing in my life.
Hey, Britt, do we talk about cats on this podcast, though?
Oh, my God, tangent. No. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But we also talk about, hauntings, paranormal, supernatural.
Ghosts. That's the same thing. UFOs. Near-death experiences.
Doppelgangers.
Oh, doppelgangers.
Oh, Ouija's, people.
Yes.
Ouija's.
Ouija boards. All of it. Anything that's strange and unusual and spooky.
Do you have a story that is spooky tonight?
I do have a story, Britt. And my first story, comes from Mary. And she says, "So this didn't happen to me, but my great-grandmother. However, my mom told me this story, so it might not be 100% accurate. So it was during World War II, and my grandpa was a child at the time and was working in the front yard with his brothers. One of his older brothers, let's call him Steve, I can't remember his real name, had to serve in the war and was therefore not at home during this time. While the sons were outside, my great-grandma was in the kitchen when suddenly Steve walked in. He looked dirty and was just staring blankly. Of course, my great-grandma was extremely excited and happy to see him, so she started talking to him. However, he didn't answer. He just stood there and eventually walked out. His mother was naturally confused and followed him out, but he was just gone. Since my grandpa and his other brothers were working in the front yard, she asked them where he went, but they told her that he was never there. They must have seen him arrive and also leave, but nothing. My great-grandma was the only one seeing him. They later found out he drove over a mine with his tank and died at the exact time he was seen. He came to say goodbye to his mother.
All the goosebumps. All the goosebumps. Oh my gosh. You know, that the way the spirit was behaving, though, was kind of doppelganger like. Have you read many of those stories where
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like the doppelganger isn't in the moment. It's not listening or reacting or anything.
Yeah, he's not
that's
aware
so
of the surroundings
interesting.
he's in. But
Yeah.
okay, one of my favorite late night things to do, one of my favorite ways to avoid sleep is falling down a YouTube hole of military reunions. Like when people come back from the military and they reunite with their family, I don't know.
Oh.
I find them so highly emotional. I'm like
all the
crying.
tears. All the
kids,
tears. Yes.
Right? Like just, oh my God, I can't stop crying. And I also cannot stop watching them. I don't know what, I don't know what the session is. But that's what I would picture when your son who's been at war walks in, you rush over and give him a hug. And
right.
stuff.
Like,
so do you think?
Yes.
So that's my like, was there a physical aspect or she just kept her distance and just had a chat with him? That doesn't line up.
This is how I envisioned it when you were telling this story. She's in the kitchen. She's up to her elbows in dishwater because she's washing the dishes. She looks behind her. Steve is there. Oh my gosh, Steve. So she's rinsing the bubbles off. How did you get home? Oh my gosh, wasn't expecting you for weeks. Drying her hands, about to give her son the biggest hug. And then by the time her hands are dried, he's turned and already walked out the door. Steve, where are you going, Steve? And she opens the door and he's not there.
Absolutely. You got it. You got it. No, I think in my mind now, her arm is halfway up a chicken or a turkey. She's stuffing a turkey. She's got like the salmonella all over her.
All over.
She's, just covered in it, drooping in it. And she's got to do the hand washing. You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how and why that happened. I don't know. That's my first story though. So
it was
freaky,
good, tragic,
creepy.
but I loved it.
Yeah, I like the idea of those deathbed visions or people knowing far away that something has happened. On that day.
A little confirmation too of the afterlives. Okay, my story I have is from Danny, not my sister-in-law Danny, different Danny. It's a reading one.
That wasn't a fart. That was just my cork. Is that what you thought? You were trying to be polite.
It sounded just like a fart.
I was trying to be discreet. I'm going to replicate it just so you know. Like I can
Okay. Fine. It's a quart. Sure. All right. This is from Danny. One evening about 3 months ago, I was sitting in my car listening to my favorite Stevie Nicks song and smoking. I was in my car in my own little world when I saw two children who seemed to have come out of nowhere begin to head towards my car. I thought it was strange, especially being as late as it was, but hey, who am I to judge? I thought they would pass by and continue on their walk to wherever, but I quickly realized that they were approaching my driver's side window. Creepy, but okay. I chose to just get out instead of rolling my window down because I felt rolling my window down was a bit rude, and to be honest, I wanted to be as close to the front door of my home as possible. Just in case things got weird. And boy, did they get weird. As I was getting out, one of the children, a little girl about 6, asked why I was getting out. I simply answered, because I'm heading in for the night. I followed up with, you guys okay? And they both quickly responded with, no, we are scared. The other child, a little boy, asked, may we sit in your car until our parents come? I thought, until your parents come, where are these parents and where are they coming to? I asked where they lived, and they answered, "Down the road." So I told them it was getting late and they better just head home. At that moment, both children peered up at me at the exact same time, and it was then I noticed the eyes. Eyes like I've never seen before. Dark, very dark eyes. Eyes that were unnaturally dark and cold, so cold. I immediately got an uncomfortable feeling, the kind of feeling that makes your fight or flight kick in. I knew I needed to get away from these kids and quick. I told them I was heading in, and the little girl asks, "May we come in?" I, of course, said no, and it was then that the polite children started putting off an almost annoyed and angry vibe. I again told the children they needed to head home, and the best I could do was call the police when I get inside. I said goodbye and headed toward my front door. They followed. It was time I get assertive. These children were not coming in my home. They both began mumbling things I couldn't make out, but whatever. It was that they were saying did not sound kind. I made it inside, turned to lock the door when the knocking began. Are you kidding me? Why won't these kids get the hint? I was not answering that door. No way. I called my boyfriend and explained everything. He thought I sounded crazy, but agreed to head over and stay the night so I would feel safer. Needless to say, the children eventually gave up and went back to whatever creepy, soulless hole they crawled out of. I hate to talk about kids like that, but those were not normal kids, not even close.
No.
I've never seen these black-eyed children since, and I pray I never see them again.
That's exactly what they are, black-eyed children. That is, oh, I've heard of them. Okay. So many questions. Love that story.
Yes.
So creepy. If they had let them sit in there, like for very practical reasons, I don't know if I would be comfortable sitting with two children I did not know in my vehicle. I'd be like, you guys can sit there. I'm going to go in. I'll watch from the window and make sure your parents grab you whenever they come.
So I researched a little what black-eyed children are. Do you want to know?
Wait, no. In a minute.
You don't want to know?
I want to know. I want to know. I've got several questions. Why is she smoking in her car? What is she smoking? What's she smoking out there? Listening to freaking Stevie Nicks.
I just cut that bit because it didn't have anything to do with the children. But to answer your question, she did answer that it is cigarettes.
Okay, I think she's lying. I think she was smoking a little bit of the reefer, a little bit of the PCP.
No.
A little bit. I don't even know what PCP would do, but I imagine black-eyed children are one of the possible outcomes of smoking the PCP. Okay, please tell me more about black-eyed children because I do not like this, but I love it.
I know. I love it too. I got this information from yourparanormalspot.com.
Oh.
It says, the black-eyed children or black-eyed kids is the legend of paranormal creatures that resemble children between the ages of 6 and 16. These creatures with pale skin and black eyes have reportedly been seen hitchhiking, panhandling, or at the doorsteps of residential homes. A bunch of stories have been circulating, all following a very similar pattern. Kids with eyes completely blacked out appear at people's home or vehicle, knock on the door, and then insist upon getting inside. Anyone who encountered them has almost immediately felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Nowadays, people... Oh, and then the article goes on to say that it really took hold in the 80s and 90s of stories being more documented and it being more talked about. But the earliest sighting was documented in the 50s.
I'd never heard of it until this year. Like, it's not something I've ever heard about before this year.
I'd heard of it a couple of years ago, but that's still not from the 90s. But it says nowadays people still claim to see the black-eyed children when driving late at night down an empty road or outside of their window late at night or even lurking in the shadows of their room. Many people have reported seeing the black-eyed children standing in the corner of their room during their episodes of sleep paralysis or even waking up in the middle of the night because because they sensed someone was watching them, and in the shadows were these children.
I really feel like we're doubling down on the whole theory of going VeggieTales on this podcast. The SkeleTales, all children, creepy
Yes,
children stories
children.
all the time. Because there's nothing creepier.
I can't get enough of them, so
Like-
maybe it's true.
Like everything about it. Like,
Oh
why
my
is
God.
it creepier when it's a child?
Imagine some demon form and they're like, okay, we've got to get to these people. What's the best way? I know, a small child's body.
Yes. Or aliens.
Can we
This is
come
my also,
in?
like, I feel like the alien thing, they're like, they got it all down except their big old eyeballs are having trouble covering. And so they're like, close enough. We got the cute little body. We got all that going. They're not
That
going
is
to
a theory.
notice the eyes. What? So no one has actually had like been attacked or eaten by them or anything? Because that's, what is
Well,
the
I
game?
have a
What's the end
second
game?
story.
Okay,
I have
I
another
won't spoil
story
it.
that
Okay.
I might inform you of.
Okay.
But you have to go next first.
Okay. So my next story is I've got a near-death experience, and not just because you had asked for a while back about out-of-body experiences, right?
Yes.
So this is kind of I feel like it's a mix of both, honestly. Someone was telling me about near-death experiences, and then they mentioned this group of firefighters, and there's one man, John, who pretty much recounts the whole story, and they got dropped into a forest fire on top of a mountain in Utah, and he was in charge of like two 20-person teams, and they had a fire that they were trying to stop, and by trying to stop that, in order to stop it, they lit more fire. They're like, we're gonna fight fire with fire.
I've never heard that technique.
Literally,
Okay.
I guess. So the idea being that they
They've
start
got
a fire.
flamethrowers.
Well, yeah, they start a fire above the fire, and they burn
Oh,
all the
God.
fuel. They like
Okay.
control it, and with their wind to their back, heading downhill to try to head off the fire and cut it off. So the winds suddenly changed, though. Flipped around on them, and suddenly they were all being consumed by, like, the fire started closing in on them, and the fire is moving uphill. They're all trying to run away from the fire. They have these little aluminum like tent things that they can put over themselves in these sorts of situations to try to protect themselves from the fire. But in order to do that, you need to like prepare the ground and make sure you're down in mineral soil, so there's no like pine needles or anything else.
They don't have time for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No time. So John has this thought that I'm going to die. This is how I die. And like in that moment of having that thought, he then finds himself shot out of his body. And he finds himself looking down at his body that's in this trench that they had dug to help combat the fire. And I'm going to read a little bit from an article that John was featured in. He says that this is it. I am going to die. And with that thought in mind, he found himself looking down on his body, which was lying in a trench. The noise, heat, and confusion from the inferno surrounding them was gone, and John felt completely at peace. As he looked around, John saw other firefighters standing above their bodies in the air. One of John's crew members had a defective foot, which he had been born with. And as he came out of his body, John looked at him and said, "Look, Jose, your foot is straight." So then a bright light appeared, and John described the bright light in this manner. The fantastic light. It was brighter than the brightest light I had ever seen on earth. It was brighter than the sun shining on a field of snow. Yet I could look at it, and it didn't hurt my eyes. The light parted, and John saw numerous people, many who were his deceased relatives, and pets were there along with members of his family. Standing in the light was John's deceased great-grandfather, who died when John was 9 years old. He appeared as an old man, so he could be easily recognized. Then John changed to look younger, about 30. He told John that they had the ability to appear in forms so they could be recognized. He also told him that he had been assigned to look after him during this lifetime on Earth. He also acted as John's guide throughout his NDE. near-death experience, and John met with others of his ancestors and had an extensive experience. His great-grandfather ultimately communicated telepathically to John that it was John's choice whether or not he should return to Earth. Not wanting to come back from the beautiful and peaceful place that he was in, John argued with his great-grandfather, explaining that it would be devastating to return to a horribly burned body. John pled with his great-grandfather to remain, and John said that all of this communication was done telepathically. He was informed that neither he nor any of his crew who chose to return would suffer ill effects from the fire. And so he chose to return. And he said it was extremely painful to go back to his body because the place that he was in was like just light and free and easy, and that like it was a painful to return to arthritis, not because of any burns or anything. And so the situation was that the fire had burned so hard and so fast, it sucked all of the oxygen out of that area, and all of him and his firefighters just collapsed and like basically died. And then they all came back. They all re-entered their body. They didn't lose a single person. They didn't have any burns. It was like some singed hair was the only casualty of the whole experience. And they were all super like blown away and baffled by this. And they were Native Americans. They were Mexican. They were, white folk. They were all different religions and all different nationalities. And they all had this, like, they all saw the same thing. They all looked around and saw each other floating above their bodies, and then had their individual like near-death experiences. John also died again later. I don't know if he got kicked by a horse or something, but he had another one later and went on to say something like that he could see everyone's relatives, like the people who were saving him. He could see their dead relatives around them, and like remembers being like really upset that he got flight for life. The helicopter pilot's grandfather was standing next to him, and he thought it was so rude that he wasn't like hugging his grandfather, so
he didn't realize that it was like a guardian angel.
I love how the idea that we're assigned a guide, and that really got me thinking. I wonder who my guide is. Do you have a sense of who your guide is?
Well, you freaking had the whole session, the Zoom session where the lady told you about your guide, remember?
Oh yeah, my spirit guide.
And it was a woman your spirit guide is a woman with long dark hair. Like you.
Was she just describing me? Is that what everyone gets? I don't know. I feel like your spirit guide is like a 6-foot, big-handed woman.
Like a Viking?
Yeah.
Like Viking ancestry?
Yeah. Likes to part her hair on the left. Has it like sometimes she laughs really hard and then snorts, like she cackle snorts sometimes.
I'm honing in on her.
Yes. Yeah. Is that who you feel is with you, Britt?
All the time.
All the time.
All the freaking time.
Yeah. No, but you're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, but who is that? I guess that's my guide. That's my person. But who are they? I would like to know. I would love to be able to have like a yearbook of all of my ancestors.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be neat? Like going back like hundreds of years though, like before even cameras. I just want to know what they all looked like.
That would be awesome. Does your great-grandmother have long dark hair in any of her photos? Do you have photos of her?
No, that's the thing. I don't really have a lot of photos, and definitely not young photos. My I bet I look identical to my great-grandpappy, John Gribben.
That's who it is.
That's who it is. The old Gribbs.
Totally your spirit guide.
You seem like a terrible person. I hope not. Okay, so that's my story. I had a near-death experience.
Good one. I love it. I love it. We're back to that whole a little documentation that there's something beyond the veil.
Yeah, so maybe I do have a little bit of theme. I guess Britt shows up to these with an undeclared theme and loves to make Alyssa look like she doesn't have her shit together over
My
here.
themes are always last minute, so I haven't had a chance to inform you.
No, that's fine. It's all right. I really don't have my shit together.
Okay, so I have another story.
Okay.
This one, I cheated a little bit because usually I try to go for first-person stories, but this one I found on the internet.
Okay.
But it's so good that I have to read it.
Okay.
In January 2016, a report appeared on the internet said to have come from an unnamed woman who had not only encountered black-eyed children, but made the mistake of allowing them in her home. According to the report, it was a decision that she believed would have lasting implications. The woman claimed to live in Vermont and told of how, in the middle of a blizzard one evening, around a year later, a loud knocking sounded at the front door of her house that she shared with her husband. Thinking that someone had been in a motor accident due to the weather, the woman went to answer the door. A quick look out of the window revealed footprints in the snow leading to the house, but there was no sign of a vehicle on the road. Now a little unnerved, she awoke her husband. As the banging on the door continued, he went to answer it. 2 children stood on the doorstep, a boy and a girl looking to be around 8 years old. The woman recalled they were not dressed for cold conditions outside, and she felt instantly unnerved by their presence. Despite her probable better judgment, she invited the 2 children inside. As she ushered the 2 children into the living room, she noticed how her cats appeared to be afraid of the visitors, with one in particular hissing at them as they passed. She offered to make the pair a cup of cocoa to warm them up, and recalled that whatever she asked them, their reply was always the same. "Our parents will be here soon." She came back into the room with the 2 cups of cocoa, and as they looked up at her to take the drinks, she noticed with horror that where their eyes should have been were 2 jet black balls like giant pupils. As she stared at them, they both suddenly asked if they could use the bathroom. She tried to remain calm and directed them to it. A moment later, her husband's nose began to bleed, and then the power suddenly went out. As the woman attempted to make her way to get to her husband a tissue, let me read that again. As the woman attempted to make her way to get her husband a tissue, she noticed both children standing at the end of the hall, motionless and staring at her. They suddenly broke the silence and said, "Our parents are here." Before opening the front door and making their way back into the night, even stranger, as she went to close the door, she saw the children getting into a black car as two tall men, both dressed in suits, stood next to it. They, too, entered the vehicle and drove away. In the months following, the woman's husband was diagnosed with an aggressive form of skin cancer, and although she didn't go into specifics, stated that she also suddenly began to suffer from regular nosebleeds and described herself as being in the worst condition of her life. She is convinced that both her and her husband's ill health is connected to that snowy night when they allowed the 2 black-eyed children into their home.
Ooh, okay.
You know what that screams to me?
What?
Aliens.
Aliens! Yes. They're like, oh, a boy, like it's always a boy and a girl. Is it always a boy and a girl in these black-eyed children stories? Because the other one was also that, right?
Not necessarily. So I read through several of these, and there's one that it was 2 boys. I haven't heard any with it 2 girls, but no, it doesn't matter. The sex doesn't matter, I don't think.
Okay. Because it's like, this is what a human boy and a human girl look like.
Well, and
One
then
of
there's
each.
some that there's where they're teenagers too. And yeah, it varies.
As soon as you said our parents are here, so they sort of willingly leave. It's not like they like what are they after
I
exactly,
don't
right?
know. It's
And then
so
that's
bizarre.
when I was like, oh, it's aliens are coming to pick them up. They're like doing their research and stuff, and they're like, okay, go to Earth School, children, and then we'll pick you up. But then the men in black, like if you said suits and
Yeah.
they like that's definitely very also the Men in Black, which I know is a movie, but it's also sort of based on like
Yeah.
conspiracy theories or theories of the Men in Black.
Yes.
So,
Yes. There was one
oh,
story where the woman opened the door and the children are there. And she has this wave of fear, but she lets the children in anyways. And the children immediately, she notices the eyes. She welcomes them in and then notices the eyes and is like, oh shit, I've made a huge mistake. And the children come in and go run up the stairs, get about halfway up the stairs and say, we're in the wrong place, and turn around and go back out the door. Like, what's that about? What do you mean, the wrong place? What are you doing? Why are you in these people's
I
homes?
kind of just like the idea of them fucking with them. What's the creepiest thing we could say? Let's do this. Like let's test. I don't know, because those are all creepy, weird ass things. Also, how are you not noticing when you look at like
Their
at
eyes
the door? It's only
immediately.
after they're near a house they're noticing the eyes.
Well, no, in the case of the, well, yeah, I guess and the snow people's case, it was a blizzard, so they're like, of course, you're not even in a coat, come in, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
noticing the eyes. I get the one where they like opened it and you're like, oh, sure, you can. I don't know. I guess people don't look each other in the eye as much as you might think.
You know what? I'm the last person who should be like critiquing eye contact. I am against it in most circumstances. So, you know what? I'll give them all a pass.
When we had gone to a minor league baseball game for the 4th of July, and it's 11:30 at night, and we are driving down. It wasn't even like a main thoroughfare, but it was like a 2-laned road with a median in the middle. And we're driving, and I saw 3 young children on the side of the road. Like it looked like there was a 2-year-old and maybe a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's young children on the side of the road. And my mom and who was driving was having a conversation with my brother, and nobody really heard until after we drove in a while. And they're like, what'd you say? And I was like, there were some little kids on the side of the road. And she's like, should I go back? And I was like, I don't think so.
Oh,
Which
no.
I hopefully
Had you already researched this story? You're like, no.
I mean, I hadn't researched, but I did know the story already. But I was like, that's really freaky. Hopefully the parents were nearby.
Oh my God. Their parents were coming soon.
Speaking of researching, though, when I was researching, I came across a post where someone said, be careful researching black-eyed children. It increases your chance of having an encounter with one.
Oh, fuck no. Stop
Like,
with that.
Cool.
That
Great.
makes me
Well, I'm already invested.
Ugh. I like it's magical thinking. That's what that is. But yes, like, oh my gosh. Amazing story. Black-eyed children.
I know.
I mean, I'm
so
glad I
creepy
haven't
as
seen
fuck.
any.
Creepy as
It
hell.
is, and it's just so weird. I kind of want to. I like really hope it's like some, not either interdimensional. I'd accept that interdimensional or like galaxy. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Intergalactic prank show or something like. Oh shit!
Ooh, I got them so
You've
good.
been punked by the black-eyed children. Oh, like, because they don't do anything. Oh, I was going to say about the people's illnesses. I don't know. I'm not super compelled that they're long-term illnesses. Like nothing happened. Oh, they had the bloody nose immediately.
The husband had his immediately.
Okay.
And then died of skin cancer, which isn't nose blood related. But then the wife had complained of ill health and nose bleeding as well.
Brett,
What?
Odin just came down here before the
Holy
podcast
shit, he did.
with a bloody nose.
And
Oh
you
my
said walk
God.
it off.
I
Literally.
He told himself to suck it up, and I was like, "That a boy, you walk that off. No tissues for you. You just walk that shit off." And he's like, "Got it, Mom."
Tough house there. Tough house.
All right. So for my last story, Britt, I guess maybe I have a theme. My theme is dead people.
You're in the right place.
Okay, so this one is someone I met online, and so I don't know their real name. Okay, but I did speak to them, and I got permission to tell their story.
Awesome.
And it is from then driver 1609. We call this one the nun from the graveyard. This is one of the few experiences multiple people had at the same time. So only me and my dad are the only ones in the family who were able to see ghosts. And for some reason, we were driving past a graveyard, and I thought it would be a good idea to explore it. For reference, the people in the car were my mom and dad in front. My dad was driving, and my sister and I are in the back. Mom and I got out and did a loop around the far side of the church on the right side from the car, and I saw a nun crying into her hands by a gravestone who wasn't there before. I just continued walking. Then, at the front of the church on the way back to the car, I turned around and the nun was following us.
No.
I walked really fast and called to my mom to hurry up or I would leave without her. After getting in the car, I looked out the window but couldn't see the nun, so I thought it was safe. But the car left the church really, really fast, like faster than I'd ever known my dad to drive. Later that night, I was telling my dad about what I had seen, and he went pale. He had seen her too, but my mom hadn't. My dad explained that after my mom got into the car, the nun got in the car too.
No! Oh my God.
And the nun was sitting kind of inside my mom.
No.
He like drew a picture for me. It's like half nun, half my mom staring out the front window.
Can you
and the nun
imagine?
No. And the nun was just staring at her dad the whole time,
No.
making like eye contact.
Oh my God.
She apparently had red eyes.
Oh, how is he in the car still? I would have wet myself and immediately ran away. Holy shit.
And then she says, my dad drove off really fast to get her out of the car because of ghost boundaries. He was terrified. I don't know what the ghost boundaries are. I don't know.
Did it work?
I think she said after 15 miles it disappeared or something. Like it was a while, and the ghost was the nun was just staring.
No.
So they said that they want to go back and look and see the grave site that the nun was crying at, but it's too scared. I know they're too scared. They want to go, but they're too scared to go. Completely understand.
Go
that.
get some
Absolutely.
paranormal investigators out there to do the work for you. Call up Soul Sisters.
Absolutely.
They're on it.
So apparently the mom woke up the next morning and told them about a dream that they had. And when she was at the church at the gravesite, and she was attending a funeral, and there was a casket there, but nobody was in the casket.
The nun is in the mom's body. The nun is in the mom's body.
Right?
Possession.
Like nuns would be at the church.
Oh my God. This is so good.
Right. That's so creepy. That's so crazy. I'm glad I can't see ghosts. That's what that makes me feel like. Because they're probably doing some creepy, crazy stuff all the time that I don't want anything to do with.
Oh my gosh. That, I mean, after 15 miles, the ghost didn't disappear. The ghost just formed into the mom's body and then made the mom have that freaky ass funeral dream. Oh,
I
man.
think you're onto something. You're right. It just finally, like, the osmosis was complete,
Yes.
soaked on in. I
A
don't know what this
nun.
ghost boundary thing is. I'd love to know more about this, though.
Yeah, we need a little insight on the ghost boundaries. Is it like a circle of salt that like somebody put down and we just don't know about? Or like, what's that? And what was I going to say? A nun with glowing red eyes staring at you? No, 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 no.
No, 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 no.
What did the dad do? What did the dad do at the cemetery?
I think he must have thought he was crazy, right? Or something. Or maybe he's always had these sorts of visions and just has learned not to say anything about it, right? So maybe this person and the dad are the only ones in the family who are able to see, and he's like, holy fuck, thank the Lord I'm not the only one that, like, you got this crazy this gene, not the I don't want to call it crazy,
but
I say that
the kid driver said that they didn't see the nun in the car, only the dad saw it in the car. The kid driver saw it out in the cemetery.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So like they're just seeing it at different times. But like a nun running at you just feels really scary too. Actually,
No,
anything running at
really-
you is not.
And then if it had red eyes, does that mean it turned evil? I feel like something super religious that got flipped. Like they've got a closer contact to God, and then also like the devil. Like I don't know. There's something. Ugh, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. So, yeah, the story I was thinking about wasn't about the nun. There's some, her name is like Bathsheba. Oh my God. Bathsheba Sherman is the name of like some woman from the 1800s who was accused of being a witch. And a character from The Conjuring is based on this person.
Okay.
And people like, I think her gravesite is in Maryland, and people will go and visit the gravesite and actually vandalize it and stuff. She was like accused of being a witch in her lifetime. Again, I think the witch trials, obviously, it was just tragic. It was sad. It was people with a vendetta and fucked up. It was just fucked up. So,
and for women, all women. Yeah.
Right. So this person though, she has her gravesite and people will leave stuff on it. So this dude went to Bathsheba Sherman's gravesite, and because I guess they watched The Conjuring or whatever, knows the story, and people left coins as kind of offerings on top of the gravesite, and he decided to take a few as a souvenir. But he swapped them out like with his own pocket change. He was like, I'm just going to swap it out, but I'm going to bring these coins that have been at the site of Bathsheba Sherman's grave. I'm going to bring them home.
Okay.
Didn't think much of it, threw them in his safe. Over the course of the next few months, over a year, I think it was, strange things were happening in his house, like weird things that they couldn't make sense of, but like a series of unfortunate events essentially were panning out. And he didn't think anything of the coins, not even in his realm of possibilities. But then he walked into the room where the safe was that these coins were stored, and on the curtains next to the safe, the sun was shining and a face materialized like right above or next to this safe. And in that moment, he was like, oh, fuck, the coins. It's the coins.
Yeah.
And, like it is. And if I will post the picture, it is a face. It is a face in these curtains.
He took a picture of it?
Yes, it is the creepiest fucking shit. And he's like, I'm returning these coins. He's like, I know I'm a shitty person. The place he's like, I know I'm a shitty person for taking these in the first place. It wasn't like my proudest moment. I just thought it'd be cool. I replaced it. I didn't think it was that big of a deal.
New theory.
I need to get these out of my house. Oh, what's your theory? Okay, go.
That dad took something from that gravesite. Right? Right?
He shouldn't have.
She pissed. She's so pissed.
Oh.
Some kind of crazy, weird,
love this
coin or bone or rock. He's like, oh, this is cool for my collection.
In my mind, it's like a rosary he found. Like,
yes.
I feel, and she's like, that's not yours. Oh OMG.
We should write.
I
We
love
need
it.
to start writing horror movies.
I know,
Get
because
on it.
our most of our podcast is just our wild imaginations extrapolating the bits of a story that we bring, and then we're like, oh, what about this? Oh my
and she
god!
has her hand up a chicken's body, and
Yeah,
That's
she was
great.
like gutting a cow at that moment.
She had
And-
blood-covered hands. Of course, she
Yeah.
couldn't hug her ghost child.
We're like, yep, that makes it tracks complete sense.
Oh, I love it.
Hey, so if you have any stories you'd like to send in, we would love to hear them. You can email them. You usually do that part. You can email us at SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You could also speak your words to us at our hotline. Call the hotline.
Our hotline is 302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. Now, we do not have operators sitting by the phone waiting to answer. We're not that kind of podcast, but what we do have set up is a sweet voicemail where you can leave your story and then hang up, and then we get really, really, really excited.
Hell yeah. Call the hotline. You can also DM us on all the socials. We are on, and just follow us. Don't
Right.
DM us, follow us, all the socials. SkeleTales Podcast on Instagram, SkeleTales Pod on Twitter. We're on
SkeleTales
Facebook.
Community on Facebook. Yes.
Like us on Facebook too. We're just SkeleTales.
We have a
They make us
TikTok,
do-
and in fact, if you have a moment today, you should go look at the TikTok. Alyssa put up one today that is the tits. It's awesome. It's not her tits.
It is not my tits,
No.
but let's just leave it there. It is my tits. Go look at it. Oh man, TikTok doesn't allow that. They might.
They might.
So
We have a merch shop that you can get through our link tree on socials or at SkeleTalesPodcast.com. But really, just tell a friend. Alyssa.
Britt, what?
Alyssa.
What?
Haunt
What?
y'all later.
Haunt you later.
Good night.
Good night.